next, we have George talking about, is Steam too sexy?
Yes, it's going to be it's going to be a fun subject with this one, guys. We're talking about sexy stuff, and man, it's going to be a controversial episode. Okay, so my question was, does Steam have a sexy problem? And this all originates from a couple stories. One was a couple months back with a game that released. We've probably all heard about it. It's called House Party. That game features just really it disguises itself kind of as a social simulator. I don't know what the hell you want to call it, but there is certain activities that can occur in this game that are rather adult. So there was a kerfuffle there for a while. They had to pull it down because it got popular, and then they had to slap a censor mod on it, and then it got back up to the store. Flash forward earlier this week, and it happened again. This time the game was called, let me see what it was called, Strangers in a Strange Land. Same thing occurred.
That's a really good name. I just want to put out that that's a really, really good name. Strangers in a Strange Land is a really good name. I don't care what it's about, but that's a really good name.
Well, let me tell you what it's about, Dan. It's
Cops.
about a... Yes, just scream that in the middle of my sentence, thank you.
I want a soundbite of that for my phone.
Okay, it's about a young man who moves to his mysterious town that apparently has a cult in it, where the only way that they can get the spell to be cast is by doing adult things. It's a stupid game. It's really just, it even looks awful, but it came up again because Steam doesn't seem to be self-aware, or Valve, I should say, doesn't seem to be self-aware. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. But yeah, I mean, it's about going around and, for lack of a better term, boning, and then following the story along. And then, of course, what happened? It got popular. People started complaining about it. People started pointing fingers at it. Steam had to do the exact same show and dance. They pulled it down, slapped a censor on it, put it back up. And it's just like, how many times is this going to happen before they start waking up?
The way I see this conversation is that it's multiple. There's definitely multiple topics here, and the one that I really want to talk about, rather than Strangers in a Strange Land content, is Valve. So okay. Valve aren't checking games as they go up, basically. Greenlight was a way that games could be approved to go up, and then, people voted them through, and then that was it. They've gone up, right? But with the current system, people pay money, it goes up, and nobody bought your game, gutted, you just lost out on 100 quid. And that's the logic, yeah? And that's a brilliant system if people actually care about making money rather than making a game and possibly making money. And as well as that, if social norms on what's worth 100 quid is consistent across the board. And put simply, this world is a world of various different cultures, and there are groups of people out there who love stuff like this. And yeah, I don't know.
Really?
Valve aren't checking things. Put simply, they haven't got a list of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And because anybody who bungs them that later refundable, that £100 that's put there, once you've made a certain amount of sales, you actually get that back. So it didn't cost you anything. So it's just kind of almost a deposit, like when you move into a new house or something, and because Valve haven't got this kind of terms and conditions saying, no, you know what, we're not going to have any religious icons fighting each other. Yeah, you're not going to be able to sleep with animals. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do this and that. Because they don't have that there, and because there's no check-in process, it's going to continue to lead to situations like this until something god-awful happens.
Right. But the thing is that, Steam has had this problem even before all this. If you look at the amount of visual novels, and some of them are rather, it's anime, but some of them are rather, what's the word, risque? And those have been around a long time on Steam as well, and it's just, you're right, they really haven't made it clear what the rules are. All they've kind of seemed to do is slap, this is an 18 plus game on the front of of the store and make you enter your age and then hit the continue button. That's it. That's all that you really need to do. But it's just it. I think there definitely needs to be some sort of clarification, like you said.
There needs to be a line, really, or there needs to be a gateway or multiple marketplaces, almost multiple storefronts. Once you've actually verified that your account is 18 plus or 21 plus or whatever the various regions do it, then a second marketplace is opened up or a second storefront is opened up, or then all of that stuff is added into the library. But at the minute, Valve have also got this big age gate problem wherein if I want to look at something on the Steam storefront and it prompts me for my age, I just simply type in whatever I want. A couple of times I've actually blocked myself out of 18 plus games because they don't check for anything below 18 plus. So games that are rated 16 in stores and you have to provide ID to buy on the Steam storefront, you don't get prompted. Last time I checked, but I've been locked out of the 18 plus stuff. Not that that's actually something that I consciously go like, oh, I'm going to look at some bloody games today, because I've rapidly typed in the various numbers and I've not put the right year in. So I've put myself down as like 1 year old. But there should be some kind of verified system there. I don't know.
We have yet to determine if you're a robot, so you could be 1 year old.
I'm talking. That's true. I'm talking around a big issue here, which I suppose is kind of cultural acceptability. So those visual novels that you mentioned that are risque, in certain areas of the world, they're not considered risque. They're just very true. They're just a part of the culture. And so when they come over to other areas that they are risque, it just seems odd and weird. And we're like, oh God, another visual novel. Some of those visual novels are good. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but the rest of them are and it just sparks this conversation every time. And that's because the world is so kind of culturally diverse still. But yeah, Valve don't have a line. They haven't drawn a line. They haven't said we're an American company and we don't want you to make a game about sleeping with people dressed in school uniforms. We don't want you to make a game about foot fetishes, and we don't want you to make a game about pigeons that ride on the top of aircrafts dressed as cowboys and have sex with each other. And because there's no line drawn, everything just gets a bit ugh. And then and then where do you draw that line anyway? Is that, to go back to an earlier discussion, is that a crimp on freedom of speech?
Dan, the things that come out of your mind, I just want to crawl into your brain and just hang out in there for a while. Digging back to my early YouTube years, there was a game I reviewed called Lauren the Amazon Princess. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that here.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, but Steam had an issue with that game, even though it was actually kind of a good game. It was a different type of visual novel. They had a problem with it because some of the clothes were rather revealing. So they actually had that game taken down. They had to put a censor, not because there was nudity, but just because the characters were so revealing, quote unquote. I'm not kidding. So I mean, it's the question. The question to me is, does Steam have a sexy problem? I don't know.
They haven't defined where they stand. So that game literally had issues because that was years ago when Steam was a lot stricter about what they put up.
Right.
And it was revealing. Whereas now, literally, you can have a game where you have like Bob McCock and Tits McGee go on a fun boat riding adventure, and and you can just have that game, and that game can just exist now until enough people complain about it that it gets pulled down.
Right.
Yeah. So my stance is still that Valve need to draw some lines, even if those lines are completely ridiculous, and everybody then spends weeks complaining about where those lines are drawn. There needs to at least be something other than, oh no, people have complained about this, we should react.
Toby, thoughts?
The only thought I have is that Steam is definitely getting too steamy here. I think the core thing to remember is that, well, even porn sites, are you over 18 or whatever the thing is, yes, no. That legally there's no big requirement to prove age.
I don't
So
know what
Steam
you're
is
talking
legally in the right.
I agree. There should be some degree of verification to gate this stuff off, and gate off the stuff that a large group of people would call weird. Because if it is allowed, even if it's really weird, and if Valve do say, yeah, you know what, you can have all of the hardcore niche stuff on here if you like, then it should at least be behind a verification gate rather than just say, yep, I just scrolled down. Oh, whoops, I said I was born in 1923. Oh, well, I'm still through. It should be something a bit more than that.
I just want to. What is this word Toby said? Porn? What is this thing? I've never heard of it.
That's when you sell something to a person for a certain amount of money, and then they can hold on to it or sell it on to other people. There's big shops for it. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, it's the little guy as well in chess. Yeah, in chess.
Oh, okay.
The frontline troops that just get completely minced.
Well, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of porn. They're very useful.
Well, they're useful, but they get completely minced up and chewed up and gobbed out, and yeah.
But if you can get them to the end, they become a queen.
just like real life. But yeah.
Well, anyways, I think that kind of sums up our thoughts on that, maybe. It's a free market. There's really no way. I think the spirit of Terry kind of possibly nailed it best when, I mean, at the end of the day, Steam needs to stop getting involved. If it wants to have if it's putting up these games because it wants to have a market for adult games, and if it's going to, it needs to stop backpedaling. It needs to crap or get off the pot, I think. And it needs to just make up its mind finally and stop trying to play to both sides.
Big button, sexy games. Click it, you get all the sexy games. That's how they should do it.
Big sexy games button, and it should play. It should play a little clip of somebody shouting out "sexy games." This person's going into sexy games through your speakers when you click it.
And it should post it to all your social medias. No, thank you.
But no, there should be proper verification of age gate. If they're not going to actually draw a line and say this is acceptable and this isn't acceptable, then they need to verify the age gate and possibly bring one in for the 15 and 16 and 12 age ratings as well. I mean, as it stands, I can download a free to play game that's a 16 rating. Or sorry, my son could create a Steam account and download a 16 rated game and just start playing it, and he is 7 years old.
Yeah. And it's funny because you don't hear about this problem with any other digital markets. Like, you don't hear about this problem in the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store because they've made it pretty freaking clear those games are not welcome there, period, end. We still have a rating system on PlayStation Store and on the Xbox Store, but those games are not welcome, period. Whereas Steam seems to be like, well, we welcome them in, but we're kind of iffy about them. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up right there.
Right, so that was George talking about, is Steam too sexy?